So in our last chapter, we did briefly talk about the railroads. We talked about the fact that the railroads really encouraged individuals to move westward. But the truth is, the railroads did so much more than that. And it's really important that you guys not only know the opportunities that the railroad companies provided, but also the opportunists that it birthed as a result of people wanting to make bread. All right, so let's get into it. Let's focus on opportunities that were created due to the railroad industry. Number one, all students need to know that the railroads connected the East and West Coast. All right, and as a result of as a result of this creation of this system that allows people to travel from one side of the country to the other, it gave people a sense that they could start off brand new. So, we already know this is a problem. Really? Okay. This happens in class all the time, so maybe I'll edit it. Don't really care. But I really want to use this pen. Oh, there we go. So it's really important that students understand the opportunities, right? Back to the first one, connecting the East Coast to the West Coast. And I need students to know that this gave individuals an opportunity to start off fresh. Let me move. Let me, put myself in a different environment, okay? It also provided opportunities for immigrants to migrate, specifically our Chinese immigrants. Okay, they came by the thousands, and they came primarily to build the railroads, which provided them with economic opportunities. And despite the racial discrimination that they faced, they were able to establish a much better lifestyle for themselves here as opposed to their home country. So we have connecting the East to the West, allowing individuals a fresh start, giving immigrants an opportunity to migrate for economic opportunities. But something that most Americans are not aware of is the fact that the railroad industry actually established our time zones. We do have 4 time zones here in the United States, and the railroad companies were operating under those time zones, and Congress decided to adopt the railroad companies' time zones in 1918. So that was another major contribution. In addition to what I just discussed, the railroads created industries. Because when you think about it, in order to build the railroads, you need these materials, you need these resources. So it provided Americans with an opportunity to create companies that was specialized in providing that supply, because at the time the demand was very what? High. You always want your supply to meet your demand in order to make some moolah. So those are some opportunities. Let's continue. All right, it's working. Some additional opportunities. You had a lot of towns that people were not familiar with. They were unheard of because there wasn't a way to get people to the town. So by creating these railroads, these isolated towns are no longer isolated. In addition, we're creating new towns and also cities because people want to settle with a fresh start. All right? So, something very, very important that will be on your next test is that these towns that are no longer isolated, these towns that are brand new, begin to specialize in providing something that other towns don't have. So a really good example is Florida. Florida is known for producing a large quantity of oranges. All right, so we are specialized in producing large quantities of oranges, and we may decide to network with other towns that may specialize in something like apples, like the state of Washington. And because we're creating this network, we're now encouraging trade. We're already familiar with trade among countries. We call that foreign trade. But now we're starting to see a different type of trade. It's called interstate trade, which is trade between states. So we have this network. Towns are becoming specialized in selling large quantities of products, and we start to see this connection within the United States of America, which is great. All right, so these opportunities are amazing, but with opportunities, it does create room for opportunists. Now, what is the definition of an opportunist? An opportunist is a person, actually. A person that is using the system to their advantage. Nothing wrong with that. It becomes a problem when abuse and corruption is part of your strategy to create an advantage. There's nothing wrong with taking advantage of opportunities. It only becomes a problem when you use abuse and corruption to do that, which is why we label individuals that do this as opportunists. I'm pretty sure there's opportunists in every industry, in almost every aspect of our lives. We will encounter an opportunist. So you need to know the opportunists for this chapter. Number one, George Pullman. He owns a rail car factory. Now, what's unique about his rail car factory? He specializes in luxury rail cars. In other words, first class. First class in a rail car. All right? This provides individuals with the best of the best. Opportunities for them to sleep while they're traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa. And he became very successful and actually very wealthy in developing this type of business that he went as far as building a town for his employees. Now, what was available to his employees in that town? They were able to get access to housing, doctors, grocery stores, you name it. It was there. It was all within this town. Who do you think was profiting off of this? George Pullman, because he owns that apartment complex. He is the owner of that medical facility. He's the owner of the grocery store. So let's make it clear. They're not staying there for free. He's just making this very convenient. Did I spell that right? I know I did. And don't fact check me. So he's making this very convenient. To me, you know what? I know some of y'all gonna be so mad. Okay. So he's making this very convenient for the employee, but if you ask me, he's made this even more convenient for him because his employees are in one section, so he has direct access to them, and he's profiting. He's making money. Not only is he making money from his business, he's making money off of the very employees that works for him. So it's coming off as if he's an opportunist. In addition, he's running a tight ship. They're not allowed to do anything. The audacity of him to even establish a curfew speak volumes in terms of how much power and control he had over his employees. But you already know what goes up must go down. So it did go down with the Pullman strike. What is a strike? The strike is when employees say, you know what, I'm not going to work. I'm taking a stand until you meet my demands. So the story behind this is surrounds him cutting wages. Okay? So he cuts their pay, but he refuses to drop their rent. So you're going to take money out of my paycheck and still expect me to pay rent to you? Nah, not happening. And that's why the strike took place. We will talk about the strike in further details. So just keep in mind that with opportunities comes opportunists, which are individuals taking advantage of the system by abusing it and also promoting corruption. Let's move on. So besides,
I hop out, I start shooting. Bow, 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 bow. Shot the nigga. Bow, shot his ass. Bow, 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 bow. All the niggas run out the door. They run out the door.
You know what?
This nigga on the floor.
Besides George Pullman, there was actually a huge scandal involving members of Congress. All right? So this may sound very hard to understand, but just picture yourself as a member of Congress. You're a member of Congress, right? And as a member, of Congress, you have the ability to control the economy. So, if you're individuals like George Pullman, or if you're one of the individuals that own the railroad companies, this person needs to be your best friend. All right? Because you know that this individual has the power to control the economy. Make sense? Yes, it makes sense. So, how do you control someone? The best way to control anyone is with money. So we got to find a way to get this money to this member of Congress. And we can't give it to him directly. So let's use a company. Let's create this company. And let's use it as, I would say, a storefront. It's a front. They flodge it. They're capping. This company is not to really generate profit, although it does generate profit. But this company is formed in order to funnel money to the member of Congress. How do you get this money to him? You make him a shareholder. All of this is capping, guys. Okay, and that's how he gets the money. If you make him a part of the company, he now can pretend that the money he's receiving is actually profit. But the truth is, the money he's receiving is to influence him. Influence is major. When you're able to influence someone in Congress, they're going to do their job in a way that benefits the person that gave them the money. Who's giving the money? Everyone that's in charge. That would be individuals like George Pullman, Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, which we'll discuss later on, but anyone that's in charge. Anyone in charge. So business owners, are able to influence members of Congress. Unfortunately, because they have this scheme going on, this scandal going on, who do you think ends up getting hurt? People like you and I, the people. Luckily, with this scandal, we were able to uncover this entire capping scene and we exposed them. Who was involved in this scandal? Members of the Republican Party. Now, were they prosecuted? Were they put in prison? No. But their image was tarnished, which basically means you now have a really bad reputation. All right? So, like I said, railroads provided opportunities, but it also introduced us to opportunists as well as scandals and corruption in our government, which is not good. Some other concerns that we were having in reference to the railroad industry was their, how would I put it? They became so greedy for profit that they began to abuse the farmers. Now, if you know your history, you should know that farmers out in the Midwest, they did experience a lot of challenges and they were able to overcome those challenges. One in particular that they were not able to address and overcome was the fact that they continued to live in debt. So we never discussed why. Why are they always broke? Why do they always owe somebody? Damn. They continue to be in debt because of the railroad companies. How are the railroad companies keeping them in debt? By maintaining high prices. How can I make a profit if the majority of my profit is allocated towards the shipping costs? The only one winning in this situation would be the railroad companies. The farmers are they're barely making ends meet because of these prices. And then the prices will often fluctuate. So it may be one price in Illinois, a different price in Michigan. Make sense? So there was no consistency. And the truth is these prices were often unfair. Just straight up unfair. All right, so how did the farmers respond to this abuse? They started an organization and said, well, F that. We got to come together because there's power in numbers. And numbers lie. Do numbers lie? No. Men and women lie, but numbers don't. Okay, that was like totally not necessary. This is the response. Let's create an organization called the Grange. What is the purpose of the Grange? Is to demand government regulation. This is something that you will continue to see all the way to the end of the school year. The farmer said, hey, we're the little fish. They're the big fish. And the only way that we could compete or survive is if the government steps in. Step up. Do something. Protect us. And the government started to protect them. They actually started to protect them by creating laws. But it was the state governments creating, oh snap. Okay. It was the state government creating those laws. And they would often create laws that would set what I would call maximum rates. All right, maximum rates. Meaning, hey, you can't charge someone more than $25 per ticket. Let's say a passenger ticket. You're establishing maximum rates. Were the farmers satisfied with these types of laws? Yes, because these laws reflect government regulation, which was pretty much the purpose of this organization. It was to get the government's attention, like, hey, help! All right, so government regulation is here, but trust and believe, the railroad companies fought back. So the railroad companies actually filed a lawsuit. They was like, hell no. This is a free economy. This is my company. How are you going to tell me how much I can charge someone for my service? I'm providing the service, not the government. So they did file a lawsuit. You will need to know the name of this lawsuit. It's called Munn versus Illinois. And the Supreme Court said, hey, we support government regulation. That's what upheld me. We support these laws. We believe that these laws are necessary because these laws protect the little fish. You're big. So what did we tell you? Don't charge above $25. At the end of the day, you're still going to make a profit. Okay? Unfortunately, this court case was then overruled by another court case. You got to understand something. In order to file a lawsuit, you need money. In order to get the best legal advice, you need what? Money. The farmers didn't have it, but those railroad companies did. And they continued to fight government regulation until the outcome of the court cases was decided in their favor. So this was not in their favor. Munn versus Illinois supported the farmers. But Wabash versus Illinois supported the railroads. And they got the decision that they were looking for. Okay, what was the decision? You can't regulate business from state to state because you're only a state. Let me use Florida. This is Florida. And Florida could regulate whatever happens inside of Florida. Make sense? This case was allowing Florida to regulate what happened between Florida and Georgia. This little space right here, Florida has no power over. Who has power to regulate what happens between two states? The feds. The federal government does. So Wabash versus Illinois was decided in the railroad company's favor. Munn versus Illinois was decided in the farmer's favor, but this became null and void, meaning it didn't matter. This mattered. So right now, which side is winning? The railroad companies. Who was upset about it? The farmers. So the farmers started reaching out to the feds. Well, if the feds can control this, that's who we need to target. So they targeted the feds, and they came out with a victory. What was that victory? The Interstate Commerce Act. This is a law that you will also need to know. And it basically did what the Munn case was supposed to do, which is give the government the right to regulate. What does it mean to regulate? To supervise, to control. All right? They also created a department called the ICC, the Interstate Commerce Commission. All right? And the farmers were happy, but once again, it was short-lived because the railroad companies continue to file lawsuits. So it becomes this never-ending battle about regulation. The only people that would be in support of regulation are the small fish. And those that are against regulation are your big fish. Because with the regulation means you're going to tell me what to do. I'm the big fish. So, what am I expecting you guys to know after watching this video? I'm expecting you to know the following. The opportunities that the railroad companies presented. Because this is all about railroad companies, right? Know your opportunities, okay? Also be able to explain how abuse and corruption came as a result of the railroad companies. Because of the railroad companies, I also need you to know how the farmers took a stand to fight against the railroad companies. And then the last important thing that I need you guys to take away from this video is how government regulation became something that was necessary in order to protect the small fish against the big fish. Big bank take little bank. I don't know who sings that song, but that's it. Main idea, railroads. What do you need to know about the railroads? Opportunities, abuse, corruption, what the farmers did to take a stand, and what does government regulation look like? Who would support it? Who would be against it? I think I'm done. Make sure you complete this assignment attached to this video. And see you later, alligator.